Welcome to our world. Well, by now you know the location. SNR, huh?
Looking with the cut of this.
Oh,
Because it's different.
oh. She was inspecting her clothing there, and I wondered what she was looking for. Anyway, I got a comment on one of my videos that SNR is not the simple life. And I think before, what's that, sign language now? Are you going like this, like crazy or something? Yeah. You know, I saw a thing once, and it was Obama was making a speech somewhere, and they were doing sign language. And later on, they found out that the person walked up and was doing the sign language, but it was all fake. It was nothing. They were just, and everybody thought it was a sign language person because nobody knew sign language. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, this video I did on simple life being a myth, and then somebody made a comment that SNR is not the simple life. I think they kind of misunderstood my point, because I don't think the simple life is not about money. Many people come to the Philippines because it's cheaper, but my point is it's not always simple. Cheap is not necessarily simple. It's like when you buy a cheap product, right? And then you go back the next month and buy the good one because the cheap one fell apart because you were trying to save money. Yeah, you get what you pay for. So anyway, I think many retirees appreciate the fact that it's cheaper here. I should say more inexpensive here. Some of the costs are lower, and that's a great thing. But I don't think most retirees that come here want to live the cheapest life that they can possibly live. There may be some expats that want to live in a nipa hut and have the full village experience, but I think a lot of, especially retirees, if they've saved their money, would like to live their retirement years with a small amount of luxury anyway, to be able to spend some of that money and enjoy life. I know when I was younger and I lived with my wife in Hawaii and didn't have a job at the time, lived in Kahalu on the other side of the mountains from Honolulu in an unfinished house, did not have the inside walls on, so you could see the plumbing in the walls and everything. And of course, no air conditioning, which was fine because it was in the mountains and it was cold, but the bugs would eat you up. There were 7-inch centipedes who would crawl around at night. They would drop off the unfinished walls, and they bite, and they're really a nasty, nasty thing. So, although it was beautiful and lush, it was like a jungle. And I had a hat that I had put on a nail. That was my hanger, was a nail. And I had a cap that was sitting there for about a week unused, and I pulled it up and it was all green inside, It's like jungle rot, huh? So most expats probably don't really want that. Maybe some do. I don't know. What I'm really saying, I guess, is the cheapest life isn't necessarily always what an expat would want, even though this whole thing about a cheap life in the Philippines is such a big deal. You've probably seen a lot of videos saying you can live for, $500, $700, $1,000, whatever it is, And yes, technically, it's possible to really, really stretch your money that far. But I've learned one thing in my years here, and that's the cheapest life here isn't always the one that you'd want to live. So let's kind of consider some of the reasons why that's true. I'd say first, the quality of life. Super low-cost living means cutting corners on things that make daily life more comfortable and maybe make you happier. Do you want to really scrimp that much in retirement? How about food? You might love that street food, but it's certainly not the healthiest thing in the world. You know, with all the trans fats and the oil and the salt. So, you know, I've seen a lot of comments before about how moving to the Philippines kind of causes your health to go downhill. And I think it's because of a lot of various things, but one of them is the food and not being able to, it's harder to exercise because it's so hot. There's not sidewalks most places. Bike trails are not very existent. We took a trip today. You're always going around stopped vehicles. Even when there is a bike trail, there's buses and jeeps and there's also people walking and, you know, so it's kind of a tough thing. And a lot of people just aren't up for that kind of exercise. But one thing also is, I think, safety is, although you might think that super cheap place is a great deal, it does offer some safety to have to live in a community, to live in a subdivision, which costs a little bit more, you know. There's higher risks of theft and break-ins and stuff if you got a little place all by yourself, and I guarantee you they will notice that you are the foreigner in the neighborhood. I know when I first got here and lived in Floridale, every time I came home from the store, somebody would ask me, "What did you buy? What did you buy? What did you buy?" They were always asking me what I bought, you know? I don't know. I just think I would rather live somewhere where I feel secure, and especially in this housing development we live in now, it really is very secure. They don't even allow trikes from outside to come through the gate. So they have shuttles, and anyway, it's a much safer. It's a safer place. Maybe you're not worried about safety, but you know, if you have a family, it's always a consideration. And you know, you really have to remember, a lot of Filipinos, if they have a choice, that's exactly what they choose, to live in a subdivision. A lot of people live on the outside because they like to, but a lot of people live on the outside super cheaply because they have to. There's some really nice subdivisions, and there's some Filipinos with plenty money that live there. So that's their choice, you know. I think another thing is access to health care. But that's probably a big one, because if you really go somewhere out in the province, the cheapest areas, they just have little teeny clinics, you know, with really limited equipment and really limited staff. For serious issues, you really got to travel to a major city like Manila or Cebu if you really want the quality care. Now, my wife Josie, she just really had a specialized treatment for a thyroid cyst. It's called ethanol ablation. And there were only 2 places that on Luzon that did this. One of them is St. Luke's. And St. Luke's is in Metro Manila. You are not going to find this outside. In fact, we went to numerous doctors because of this cyst, and they all say, "Oh, you just have to have the thyroid out." They all were, that's it. Only surgery. That's the only option. See, so she's doing great. The cyst is gone, and we are really glad that we were able to travel to some place that had the expertise and had the latest in knowledge to deal with that thing. But that wouldn't happen if you were out in the province, you know. So I'm not saying that cheap living is bad. I'm just saying some people might thrive on that kind of budget. They might just eat up that kind of village life, you know. Maybe it's what they always wanted. I mean, it's simple, that's for sure. But the key is, I guess, to find the balance that works for you, not what is the very cheapest. And for me, the cheapest thing is not the simplest. And part of that, like my other video I explained, part of that is because of financial issues. It's just, that's not simple. It's not always simple in the Philippines. So, had I known all of these restrictions before I came here, I guess it's good I didn't. I would have never met my wife. But had I known that, I would have had to really give a second thought to moving here. If I would have known that I'm restricted in doing what I want with my money because of the restrictions that the United States puts on the Philippines. Not the restriction that the Philippines puts on it. It's the restrictions that the United States put on it. A lot of companies have left here that were here, like Citibank was here before. They're gone. Several brokerages that used to be able to have an account here, they're gone. It's U.S. only, except for one that I know of. Oh, here's just an interesting thing. I got an ATM card. We got that renewed when we were at the bank, converting some money to pesos from my Social Security dollar account. I noticed that my ATM card needed renewing, and so we went ahead and did that because it expires next month. And I actually didn't realize this because we really don't use that ATM card much, but there's quite a few limits on it. Maximum daily purchase amount, 100,000. Well, that may not seem like a big deal to you, but there are times that's not a massive amount of money really for an American, and you couldn't use this card for that. Another thing, there's a daily withdrawal amount, only 20,000 pesos. Now you can make up to 6 withdrawals a day, but total can't be over 20,000 pesos. So that's a lot of difference between some cards in the U.S. and cards here. So there is a big difference as far as all kinds of things financially. And I was asking the guy there at the bank that was helping us exchange the money, what do people do as far as the best way if you were to move more money here? And he said, passbook account. And I was kind of surprised. Passbook account, really? And he says, yes, you can only use it, you can only withdraw in the bank in the Philippines, so it's more secure. Because of scammers and fraud and everything, you can't actually use that money. You can't withdraw anything anywhere but the bank and in the Philippines. I thought that was really interesting. But here's the biggest thing on this. It has I don't know if they call it FDIC, but probably not FDIC. But anyway, the government insurance backing corporation, whatever that's called here, covers you up to 1 million pesos in your account. Now, I asked them, if you open more than one account, is it 1 million on each account? And he said no matter how many accounts you have, the total amount of your money covered by insurance. Should there be some major disaster, maybe the economy totally falls apart, who knows what could happen, This is not the United States. But it's 1 million coverage, 1 million pesos. 1 million pesos is only $16,666, as I recall dividing it out yesterday. That's not very much for somebody, let's say, who has their whole retirement savings. So anyway, there's just a lot of things to consider in moving to the Philippines. And my point is, it may be for you and it may not be for you. Because the cheapest existence you can have, it might or might not be right for you. So I appreciate you watching. And how did you like that bargain we got there, that Advil? We didn't buy it before when it was discounted, but I saw it on the sale shelf again. I hardly ever take an Advil. Josie does every once in a while for a headache. But it was 75 pesos for two bottles, and that stuff is expensive. You just get 4 or 6 of them, when you buy a little card if you go into the store. So it's crazy. We got hundreds of those things, so it's probably like more than a lifetime supply. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and I do appreciate all the new subscribers lately. See you later.